In the sixth episode of Fellow Travelers, Beyond Measure, we meet Hawk Fuller, Matt Bomer, as a family guy and Tim Laughlin, Jonathan Bailey, as a wanted man. The sixth installment of the 8-part miniseries delves further into the character of Allison Williams as Lucy Smith, who has primarily played a supporting role in the first 5 episodes as Hawk's motivator for leading a conventional and constrictive lifestyle. In episode 6 of Fellow Travelers, Hawk's 2 kids, Jackson and Kimberly, are also introduced. Jackson exhibits signs of disobedience and identity confusion. In episode 6, Tim is an anti-war demonstrator that the FBI is looking for in 1968. Hawk and Lucy own the country property and 2 children. After years apart, Hawk longs for Tim's return in his life, and Tim, who is preparing to become a priest, finds it difficult to resist Hawk's seduction. The shocking event that the show required to punctuate the 1950s timeline and ultimately advance its plot was the passing of Hawk's dependable boss, Senator Smith. Episode 6 decelerates the action and exchanges the ferocity of 1950s McCarthyism for a gentle look into Hawk's family life in 1968. But the show's politics don't end here. In this episode, the Vietnam War rages in the background and creates a fresh push and pull dynamic between Hawk and Tim. Although the first half of the series threatened to turn the characters into caricatures of toughened political animals, by denying them the room to grow, the overall more measured narrative pace is a welcome adjustment that lets us get to know the characters better. It's equally captivating to see Fellow Travelers unfold like an adult drama, as it is to watch the impact of long-held secrets and the anguish of restraint start to burn through Hawk's fabricated new existence as time goes on. Not surprisingly for someone who never gets his hands dirty, Hawk hasn't taken a strong stand on Vietnam by 1968. Keeping a low profile, he enjoys throwing parties for Lucy and their kids, Jackson and Kimberly. Tim, on the other hand, isn't willing to sit around doing nothing. He breaks into a draft office with a group of religious anti-war activists and takes all the draft cards for soldiers that haven't been processed. They then burn the cards in a public trash can until the group is restrained and beaten. Hawk, who has been following his former partner since their breakup more than 10 years ago, helps Tim by sending the money to their old acquaintance Marcus to handle logistics, so there is no trace of Hawk's whereabouts. Hawk takes advantage of the situation by picking Tim up from a nearby bus station and taking him to his hunting cabin now that Tim is once again obligated to him. Tim has the option to remain hidden while his attorneys work out plea agreements, and while Hawk pulls some strings of his own. However, the way that the 1968 events are edited in between not too long ago flashbacks and the present is a little too delicate. This episode has multiple cuts meant to demonstrate how Lucy persuaded Hawk to move from his apartment in Washington, D.C. to their country home with the extra cabin next door. This is meant to suggest that Hawk had an affair with the contractor of the cabin, which Lucy finds out for sure at the end of the episode. The length and style of Allison Williams' hair is all that viewers have to go by to determine the year, making it difficult to follow this dance between the somewhat more blue tones of the early 1960s and the more orange coloring of 1968. During one of those flashbacks, Lucy's mother reassures her that Hawk's cabin is nothing to be concerned about. She tells her daughter, "Find solace in the knowledge that you are the one he loves and returns home to." The meeting of needs is all that remains. Lucy complies with her mother's suggestions, but she never considers the possibility that the affair she is talking about could involve a different man. Years later, Hawk's cabin has become his well-known getaway, a location where Tim can be hidden, and Lucy knows not to bother him. Hawk informs him of the charges that the authorities intend to pursue against him, but Tim disputes all the favors Hawk has been able to obtain through his network of former acquaintances, and then declines Hawk's advances as well. Tim has vowed to remain single and is pursuing a priesthood while attending seminary. Tim tells Hawk, "I keep coming back to something Father Lawrence says all the time. The truth is the highest God. I used to believe in 2 things, that I loved God and that I love you. One was a dream and the other was genuine." So interesting, this Hawk, Tim, and God love triangle isn't quite compelling enough for the show to keep bringing up without delving further. The dynamics between Hawk and his family in episode 6 really intrigue me, especially the many forms of stress he experiences with Lucy and his son Jackson, who is acting out of control and defying his father. When Tim returns from his one-night escape to the hunting cabin, Jackson is aiming a firearm at him. Jackson tells his mother that Hawk is having company at the cabin, even though the two swiftly defuse the situation and make friends. However, Lucy is pressed for time because the pair is hosting a large party at their home before she can confront her husband. That will have to wait until later, after she has had more time to process her emotions. After sneaking out of the celebration, Jackson returns to the cabin and finds Tim, who consoles him until he nods off. Lucy, meanwhile, makes an attempt at flirting of her own by planting a kiss on a partygoer in the kitchen. After the festivities wind down, Hawk is taken upstairs to their bedroom by an inebriated Lucy. She answers by putting Hawk's palm on her when he tells her he doesn't want to have sex with her while she's intoxicated. "Am I really that ugly to you?" Lucy asks her husband, who is barely able to maintain composure in the face of a catatonic son, a suspicious wife, and a lover who is only yards away. Hawk says, "Don't be silly, you're a beautiful woman," yet Lucy corrects him. She asks facetiously, putting the final word of Hawk's sentence in suspended invisible italics. "That's the problem, isn't it?" she says. After making love to his wife in an attempt to prove himself, and perhaps a little taken aback by Lucy's more traditionally manly candor, Hawk dashes to the cabin to get Jackson. A hangover, Lucy wakes up to find Tim at her front door in the morning, posing as a stranger and requesting to use the phone. She says with a stone face, "I know who you are." Hawk is not present. In this series, Williams gives her best performance to date, effortlessly switching between the roles of worried wife, worried mother, and underweight woman in her prime. Lucy informs Tim that she discovered the paperweight he had given Hawk when she was tidying up his DC office, during which Tim had also secretly left a farewell note beneath Hawk's door. The letter began, "Dear Hawk, I went into the army to get away from you. Distance and time, I believed would help, haven't. Hawk, I want to discover something more in life, perhaps a stronger religion, but for now, I still adore you." Tim is informed by Lucy that Hawk never saw the letter because she burnt it. Tim appears unhappy, but he understands that he has no right to express his disappointment since Hawk's wife is going through the same thing that Tim did in the past. Lucy's suffering from being used like a puppet is made even more intense because she isn't a secret. She finds herself in this embarrassing situation, and her family is the reason she is unable to escape it. As we approach the final 2 episodes over the next several weeks, it appears that the familial drama is reaching a boiling point. Hawk and Lucy argue near the end of the episode, and Lucy tells her husband that she knows he was hiding Tim at the cabin. Finally, Lucy poses to Hawk the hypothetical question that Tim and she have been meaning to put out for years. "Are you the only one who matters?" Hawk tries to patch things up with Jackson, telling his son that he's sorry for all the trouble that Hawk's actions have caused him to go through in the last few days. Hawk is moved by Lucy to start showing their family the love and respect that it deserves. "Are you aware of my love for you?" Hawk asks him. "Yes, I do. I adore you more than anything." Even if Jackson's response makes it seem weighted, the sentiment is completely genuine. He says, "Dad, I think there's something wrong with me." Hawk reassures Jackson that he is fine, just as any loving father would. "Son, we're all going to be all right. Everyone among us will be all right." However, considering that this is how the episode closes on a frigid note, I'm not sure if I buy that, nor do I think Hawk or his family do.